Introduction video by Kimber Weedle. A little bit about me. I was raised in Great Bend, Kansas. I am currently living in Gower, Missouri. I have been married to my husband for 5 years, and we met at Fort Hays during our undergrad. And August 2nd, we had our first child. He was 5 weeks, 1 day premature, and he is 11 weeks today. A little bit about my career. I am going on my 6th year at Riverside, which is 6 years of teaching. Riverside is a combined district with Elwood and Wathena, Kansas. It is right across the river from Missouri, so it's right on the edge. I teach 6th grade math, and I also do middle school strats. So usually that is the second tier of kids, second and third tier kids that need help in math. I try to fill in their gaps there. I am also a member of the student improvement team to help kids get tested for special education or get a 504 plan, anything like that. I also taught for 4 years basketball and volleyball for 8th grade. This is my first year not coaching either one of those sports. With having my son, I decided to go ahead and skip out on that this year. So the 10 facts that I learned was site or school-based management. So it would be easier to have somebody on the campus knowing the district, knowing what they need, knowing what each school needs to be able to have a accurate management of where they need to spend. Central management resources. It said stuff about being consistent, that every building needs to be consistent, every principal needs to be consistent with what they do in that district, and economy scale, so be able to know that you're paying your teachers so that they can live in the economy and that their wage is correct. Developing school budget. So this was part of the principal's responsibility. Every school does it different. Every principal does it different. I thought it was interesting that it was the principal's responsibility. I know in our district, most of the time the budget is brought up and it is the superintendent and the school board discussing it. Fundraisers. The principal is responsible for fundraisers. Our school does not do fundraisers, so to me that was interesting that the principal is the one who sets it up and everything else. Only our sports teams do fundraisers, and that's usually up to the coach. Account keeping. So the principal is responsible to be able to keep the accounts, to know where all the money's going. I know for a fact in our school that's actually the secretary who is keeping track. And most of the time she's keeping track with the extracurriculum supervisors, everything like that. Some of the account tools that they mentioned that would help would be HCCS, FreshBooks, and Xero. Software system was Chalkable Finances and BMSI. They also talked about making sure as a principal that your staff and students are taken care of. You know your staff and your students, so making sure your budget is up to date with that. Again, principals knowing what's best for the students. They know that how short of a budget they can go off of. Knowing your state formula to determine dollars are allocated. So as a principal, you need to know kind of how your state is funding all education. That way you know how you are receiving the money and how much money you will be receiving. Some of this I went through, but my school, the principal we don't do fundraisers unless it's sports, and a lot of times our middle school sports do not do fundraisers unless we're selling shirts. And then that's just a small little fundraiser that we're really not actually doing for a fundraiser. And our principal really doesn't explain the budget to us. He does sometimes in meetings, but a lot of times it's going over what the school board had discussed. So in our school, we don't know much about our budget per school or per district, honestly. Changing the budget. So as a future leader, I am nervous of changing a school budget for a couple of reasons. I don't want to mess things up for the worst. I know schools, especially right now, seem to be struggling with finances, so I would not want to make things worse. I would also not want to upset people. We had a superintendent that came in and the very first year just started cutting teachers to find out that we actually had enough money to cover all of those teachers, but he made it sound like we didn't. So he was just trying to cut corners, and he cut people who we really could have used. Um, Cutting things the school really needs. So I know some schools are cutting specials, things like that, that kids in that area could really use. Like currently, I am in a low economic school district, and some of those kids not having different traits could really hurt them, like agriculture, anything like that, because we are in a very farming area. So things like that could really be damaging to the students. And then there's my reference. Thank you.